Hello, I'm Sam from Just Obsessed. The focus of my channel is to share and educate on how to buy less, buy better. It's not necessarily about buying less things, it's about buying something that fits its purpose perfectly and serves you for as long as possible. About a year ago, I had what I thought was a brilliant idea to buy a full leather sneaker style sports shoe so that I didn't have to replace my walking shoes every 2 or 3 years. So I went ahead and I purchased a pair of Koio Retro Runners in early 2023. Being a year later, I wanted to give you an update on how my plan is going. Spoiler alert, so far it's probably not a viable option, or it's not going to be with this pair of Koios. This pair are the Retro Runner. They come in the color Breeze, which is a light gray, and they are made in Marseille, Italy. The materials are as follows. It is constructed from an LWG silver certified Italian leather and suede from the outside. The inside is LWG gold certified Italian leather, and it is set on a recycled TPU outsole with a EVA midsole. It's also fitted with a removable leather insole. I ordered a size 7, which is the same as the previous pair of Koios that I had, a pair of Capris, and I'll give you an update on how they're fitting today a bit later in the video. As for the cost, they were 420 Australian dollars, which is 295 USD. So let's talk about my experience. Over the past year, I've probably worn these shoes most days, meaning let's say that I've worn them in the high 200-ish times. Normally my wear for these shoes would be a daily walk, but I did wear them in other ways as well. Any time that I really needed to walk a long time and I needed to have a shoe that was going to be comfortable. These came in handy. Things like traveling, though loafers are still my favorite airport shoe, these were my close second choice. And when they're not worn, they had shoe trees in them and they were kept from getting too damp or too dirty. In my initial video, I talked in detail about the materials and what that LWG certification means, and I said that these materials felt like they were a step up in terms of material when compared to my original pair of Koios from 2019, which, although not the same type of shoe, was still indicative of the quality that they were putting out at the time. In particular, and kind of an interesting note, is that I said that the lining was particularly incredibly soft and buttery. And as I said earlier, it's that LWG gold certified leather compared to the silver certification that is on the exterior of the shoe. And I also noted that the front of the shoe is actually only canvas lined, so only about a quarter or a third of the entire shoe is lined in that gold LWG certified leather. And my hypothesis at the time was that they chose to just do a little bit of it in the best quality material so that they had the best quality material. And that doesn't seem to be the case. So let's talk about materials. Starting off with the obvious problem, which is the right shoe on the inside of the heel has already worn through the foam padding at the back, and we're now able to see that behind that leather layer there is a bit of sort of foamy padding material. For context, this is the only pair of shoes that this has ever happened to. You know, this is not something that happens because my feet are shaped in an interesting way or anything like that. I have lots of welted shoes and I have lots of sports shoes and have owned pairs over my life, and this has never happened. So I'm fairly confident that I'm going to put this down to the material failing and not my foot being unusual in any way. So far, this is the only place that has had this kind of wear, though I can see that it is happening on the other shoe as well, but not as quickly. The rest of the leather lining looks to be nice and intact, and comparatively so, but it might just be the way that they've selected and cut the hide on both of these shoes. Possibly. My other hypothesis as to why this is worn through is the need to curve it in such a tight spot, meaning that they had to get the leather very thin to get it, you know, as malleable as it needed to be to smush into that place. That's my guess, and sadly it means that the entirety of these shoes is on a limited lifetime in terms of its ability to stay intact. As for my options, well, I've emailed Koio and they basically said, sorry, but nothing we're going to do about it because you're outside of the 6-month warranty that they offer in the shoes, though they did offer free shipping on another pair. It's not a long-term fix. And as for local options, looking at the spot, I think maybe a spot repair might work, but you might eventually need to replace the entire counter cover, which is going to need to be done on both shoes, and this means added cost, and it means that I'm going to need to find someone skilled that can actually do it, which off the top of my head I don't know anyone. And that's all just annoying and stressful and kind of just disappointing as an outcome, and a red flag that these shoes are really not acceptable as a casual and occasional shoe. It's not a sports shoe, obviously, but it's not a sports shoe walking shoe replacement as I had intended it to be. As for the other materials in the shoe, well, they've held up a bit better. The upper leather, being a mix of that smooth and the suede lining, has meant that it's held up really well because it's very abrasive resistant. It has darkened slightly, which is to be expected, but for the most part it's really hard to notice, and the real changes are in the inside. There's no marking or scuffing or anything. We know suede is very resilient, and it's certainly helped a lot, I think, for this shoe. Overall, I'm really happy with the outer materials, and the choices that they've made in terms of what materials to use where have been good ones, and it's meant that the shoe has been holding up really well. The other place that I was curious about how it would last longer term was the midsole and the actual lower outer sole itself. We assume that they're glued together, and in places that glue is starting to allow the upper and the sole, or the midsole, to separate a little bit. Not in a way that sort of flips and flaps, but it's just a little bit annoying, released ever so slightly. The midsole itself seems to be a little bit fragile and a little bit porous, but it isn't deteriorating in any kind of bad way. It has taken some dings and some scratches in places, but nothing crazy. It's not a bad sole, and it's fairly comfortable as expected, providing that nice soft sort of squishy underfoot. Finally, there's the actual outer sole, which is a gummy rubber material and has honestly really impressed me. I clearly scraped my heels, which is evident across both soles, but the rest of the shoe shows almost no wear. So it's proving itself to be a really good quality and really long lasting material. Overall, for the materials, I'm still quite impressed with most, but not all of it, which in itself is very frustrating because not too many changes would have had to be made to make this a shoe that I was ultimately looking for. Or at least that's what it seems to me after the first year that I've had it, if you exclude the lining. Well, that's enough complaining. Let's talk about something that they did right, well, at least for my feet, which is the fit. There are two ways that a shoe will fit. The footbed, or how well the foot is accommodated in terms of its width and length, and then there's the upper, or how well your volume of your foot is going to be accommodated. Something we probably need to talk about more, as I swear most people don't talk about how their shoes actually fit, and I don't blame them. There's just really bad information out there about it. As for these Koios, the foot fits incredibly well for the length and the width, and that's evident by the foot pattern which has been left on the leather insoles, which you can take out, and it's pretty clearly showing how my foot fills the entire space very well. Couldn't really ask for much better. As for the upper, well, this also is incredibly comfortable. It started by needing a little bit of stretching and breaking in, but it was always pretty soft, and at this stage it's very soft, very nicely molded, fits around my foot and hugs my arches, providing a very comforting and supporting shoe. So I've been wearing them as a daily walking shoe, but they have come in handy as a casual shoe if I needed to walk particularly far, or even if I needed an alternative beige or beige on beige outfit option. Or most notably, I use them a lot in airports. And I think that's really the only way that it's been worn other than as a walking shoe. So let me show you that airport fit. I actually go back and forth on these or loafers in airports, and the reasons why are my Aldens tend to be easier to take off and on. They don't have any laces, but they have a metal shank in them, meaning that in most airports I'm going to need to take them off. Then in some airports they make you take your shoes off at all times, regardless of whether they have shanks or not in them. So the loafer is a great option if you just don't know whether you're gonna have to take your shoe on and off, because you just slide it on, slide it off, easy as. But if you're not going to go to an airport where you're going to have to take off your shoes, then these are a fantastic option. You just have to tie the laces. If you've got to go through somewhere like Singapore, then you're going to need to walk a few kilometers between terminals, and even with laces, this makes Koio a fantastic option because they are a really comfortable walking shoe. And for what I combine it with, well, I actually have a bit of an airport uniform in a way, and that consists of a white t-shirt, my informale chinos, and then depending on the destination climate, some form of outerwear, be it a vest for lots of pockets, or a work shirt, or I'm not really sure. Depends on the climate. It's been really a go-to outfit for probably the last 3 or 4 years when I'm going through the airport, and these shoes combined with my loafers have had sort of even and equal chance to really walk around the world, and they have done a fantastic job at doing so. Well, we got there, almost. I almost found a shoe that can be both athletic and last longer than a couple of years. Sadly, we've failed once more, and I have the distinct impression that within the next year or so, these shoes are going to need some internal repairs in order to continue functioning as I want them to. It's not really ideal for a $420 shoe that I really wanted to last longer than my New Balances, which I got to 3 years without any issues, and they cost a lot less. Anyway, I'm going to have to report back in another year. Thanks very much for watching. Links down in the description as always. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers.